Okay, so let's talk about these bell ringer questions. So everyone, I think everyone agreed that the first question, on average, how many people like watching movies over watching TV shows, is statistical. Why is that a statistical question? Remember, this is part of that whole group discussion. This is part of your active collaboration. So let's get our hands raised. Let's share out ideas. All right, and so I always hear from Lily, Kate, and Grace. Can I hear from somebody else first? I hear from Ethan a lot too. Anybody? Y'all being scared for no reason. Preston, I hear from a lot as well. Yes, ma'am. All right, Eliza, right? Yes, ma'am. What you got for us?
What was the question?
Why are we saying, or why are the majority of us saying that this top question, on average, how many people like watching movies over watching TV shows, why is that statistical?
Because the answer can change.
So the answer can change. Can anyone add on to or push back on that? What you got? Say that louder. Variability. Remember, when we talk about language, mathematical language, we want to be clear on that. Yes, answers can change. Some people would prefer watching TV shows. Who in here would prefer to watch a TV show? So Lily Kay's the only one. Phoebe, okay. Who would prefer to watch a movie? I would say I love the TV show format, especially a good miniseries. But so notice, you just don't like when it ends. Okay, but notice there's variability in our responses. I want to pause and I want to point this out though. I need y'all to hear me very clearly on this. This is not something I'm going to assess you on, but this is something that is good to be aware of. Can you average how many people like watching movies or TV shows?
You can't round it up because it's like people.
Well, and it's not just that. I'm not measuring something. I'm counting. So I could ask, what is the frequency? What is the proportion? What is the relative frequency of people who like watching movies over TV shows? But when we average things, we have to have some kind of measurement. Z, headphone out, please. For example, yesterday, right, we were looking at the average length of the words. What were we averaging for the length of those words? The letters, right? What's something else that you have seen in your life that you can average? Just anything. Don't make it hard. How about people's weight? Could you average their weight? Yes, Mr. Kenny. Thanks, guys. I appreciate Z getting involved there. What about people's height? Can you average their height? Yes, there we go. Okay. Can you average how many games? Let's say how many Hillcrest football games somebody went to. Yes? Can you average how many people went to the final Hillcrest football game? No. There's only one number associated with how many people attended that game, right? So I can't really average that. Could I average how many people have brown eyes? What am I going to average? Either someone, so here's something I want y'all to hear. If the responses are numerical, you can typically average them. If the responses are not numerical, you cannot average them. And to average, you have to have more than one numerical response. So again, can I average how many people have brown eyes? The response is either, yes, I have brown eyes, or no, I do not. Can I average that idea? No. So can I average if you like watching movies or if you like watching TV shows? No. I can only average numerical things. So be aware that that's an important statistical concept we'll look at later. Whereas if we look at what is the average amount of gas that people get at MAPCO, can you average the amount of gas? Yes. Will there be variability in that response? Yes. Okay. How much sleep did you get last night? A couple of us did think that was statistical. Most of us said no, though. Why would we say no to how much sleep did you get last night? Grace, what you got?
Because it seems like a survey question.
So remember, a survey question is not necessarily, or is not a statistical question, right? That's the question that you're trying to, or that you're asking someone to answer some statistical question. Similarly, a lot of us said, how much sleep do you typically get in a night? And most of us said, no, this is not statistical. For those who said it was, because we had a few, Can someone tell us why they were thinking it is statistical? What you got, Jacoby? Does it vary how much sleep you get in a night? Yes. And so that's one of the things you have to be careful and you have to think about, right? So if I just ask, how much sleep did you get last night? How many answers are there to that? There's only one. And I'm directly asking you, but if I directly ask you, how much sleep do you typically get in a night? Are you going to get different amounts of sleep different nights? Yes. So is there variability in which nights I look at?
Yes.
So that's something you have to be careful on. You have to think about, could there be variability in the responses, right? And so even though that's directly asking you, if we're talking about multiple nights, there's still variability. So you want to consider that. We all agreed, what is the national anthem? Not statistical. Do people prefer summertime or wintertime? And what percentage of students go to work or sports after school? Both of those have what? Variability. If I ask every student in this classroom, could I get different answers about whether they prefer summer or winter?
Yes.
Yes. If I ask everybody in this room, what percentage of students go to work or sports after school, could I get different answers? Some don't even do either, and that's totally fine. It's just I would get variability. And I do want to point this out. Notice here, this is what we would call the responses of categorical. Either you go to work, you go to sports, or you don't do any of those things. You see how there's no numbers involved there? Right? I would count how many do one of those things, but the response itself is not numerical. So I could talk about percentages. I could talk about frequency or relative frequency, but I'm not going to talk about an average there. What are your lingering last questions about statistical versus non-statistical questions? I feel like we're definitely getting better with it.
So I did word that correctly, right?
Which one, that last one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you could say what percentage, and so you would put the answer as a percent, 37% or whatever it is. You could say what proportion of students, and so then that would just be the decimal version, right? So there's multiple ways to say it, but that's one of the valid ways to say it, 100%. Okay? Alright, I'm going to stop the poll. Let's get started with today. Naisha, can you hit the lights for me, please? And I only answered, it was Lily Kate that asked that question, right? But does anybody else have any final lingering questions about statistical versus non-statistical questions? Because we'll either have an understanding check on this on Friday or on Monday, depending on when we wrap things up. So this is one of the skills I will be assessing. Okay. Alright. So let's look here. So we're going to have a quick active collaboration reminder. I always want you to think about those active collaboration scores. I've already got quite a few people who have jumped into the conversation. Remember, guys, I'm never going to get upset with someone for saying an incorrect answer because one, it's when we're incorrect, when we're willing to think about things and offer up ideas that we're going to learn and grow the most. And two, if you get something incorrect, I can help you learn from what you were saying incorrectly. Share your ideas. Ask all the questions. The person who asks questions gets their questions answered. So get involved in that conversation. The only thing that will ever frustrate me in a math class is apathy, meaning you just don't care to do enough or do anything. Try. You'll learn. You'll grow in my class. So I'll remind you of the things I'm looking for in active collaboration. I'm going to do a quick random sampling recap, especially because I found out or realized yesterday that I made a mistake with the parameter, and so when I recalculated the average word length of This is America, our answers made a lot more sense, so we'll look at that. Then we're going to jump into a little bit of random sampling practice, and then go back to the book for sample surveys, observational studies, and experiments, and that'll be the last lesson that we do out of our mini stats unit. Okay, first things first. These are the scores you don't ever want to get on active collaboration, 0s, 1s, and 2s. And someone asked, how will I ever know what my score is? I'm taking this first week to start collecting scores. I'm going to enter them into a Google Sheet, and based on the information that your parents shared with me about what their email is and I collected your email earlier this week, didn't I? I'm going to share that Google Sheet with you and your parents. So I'm going to have to go individually because I don't want everyone to see everyone's scores, but I will send Grace, her and her parents, the Google Sheet, right? Okay. When it comes to Ethan, I will send Ethan and his parents the Google Sheet. I'll send Jose, he and his parents the Google Sheet. Make sense? Okay, so I will send that individually. It takes time to do that, but that way you can see your scores. And one of my goals over the first couple weeks is to come around and just say, hey, how do you think your active collaboration has gone today? And I'm going to share with you what I've seen, and so that you can start to reflect and see what you need to work on and improve. So think through those things. But if you're a 0, 1, or a 2, at the end of the day, what I'm telling you is, I'm not seeing you work. You have to actively collaborate to grow and to learn. And so if I see you off task, if I see you not completing things, that's when you're going to get a 0, 1, or a 2. You need to, at the bare minimum, get to this 3. In small group, to get a 3, what do you have to do? It's on the board. It's also on the yellow sheet that you have in your notebook.
Complete the assignments.
You have to complete assignments. Do you have to talk to your small group to get a 3? No. But you have to at least complete assignments. During whole class discussion, what do you have to do? You don't have to talk. I ideally want you to talk, but to get to a 3, you either have to take notes,
share thoughts, or ask questions.
Share thoughts or ask questions, which that includes the talking, right? And how many of those 3 things do you have to do to get a 3?
1.
Just one of them, okay? So to get a 3, you need to at least work, and you need to at least do one of those 3 things. Taking notes, sharing your thoughts, asking questions. To get up to a 3.5, you still have to do those things. So if you don't take notes, share thoughts, or ask questions, you can't get to a 3, which means you can't get to a 3.5. You would automatically be at a 2, right? And so you need to be aware of that. You have to hit the benchmark for the previous score to be able to get to the next one. And so 3.5 in the small groups, you're going to have to start to do what? You're going to have to talk. And it's a small group. It's a group of 4. Don't let that be scary. Ask each other for help. Talk with each other about the different things that you're learning. Thank you. Shania, right? Good morning, Shania. And?
Oh, I'm capable.
There we go. Glad you're aware of it. All right. So 3.5, we want to make sure that we're talking in those small groups. Then to get to the 4 and 4.5, it goes back to focusing on whole class discussion. To earn a 4, right? What do you have to do? To earn a 4, what do you have to do?
Do at least of the following: share thoughts, ask questions, or take notes.
You gotta do at least 2 of those things. Same exact whole class things. You gotta share thoughts, you gotta take notes, you gotta ask questions. 2 of those 3, that's it. And you have to be doing it consistently throughout class. So you can't just do it, you can't just talk once and be like, oh, I'm at a 4. No, you gotta be involved in the conversation. In order to talk, what has to happen? Anyone know? You have to think. And that's the priority, right? You're not gonna grow and learn if you're sitting there passively and just waiting for me to do something. You've got to think in order to grow and to learn. And so that's why I need you talking in those whole class discussions. And to get to that 4.5, you have to be sharing your thoughts, you have to be asking questions, and you need to be taking notes, right? Any kind of questions will do. And to get to the 5, the huge difference between a 5 is just a little bit more than this part for a 3.5, but also you have to show leadership. It's not just sharing out ideas. I need to see that you are engaging everyone in your group. If you notice that Hayden is trying to fall asleep during the small group time, Z goes, hey Hayden, what are you thinking about blank, right? If Haley's not talking, Z says, hey Haley, what are you thinking about this idea? Haley, do you need any help? Being a leader within your small group and really making sure everyone's growing and learning, that's how you get up to a 5. All right, so objectives for today. This is where we almost wrapped up. We wrapped up almost all these things yesterday, explaining why samples need to be collected with some randomized method. So let's look over here. I mentioned earlier that I made a mistake. If you remember yesterday, I told you this brown line of an average of 4.34 letters per word was the average length of that song, average word length of that song, and I went back and I was like, that doesn't make sense. And I checked it again because I looked at the wrong number in Microsoft Word to make this. Now, the actual average length per word is 3.9 letters per word. What do you notice about the random data sets in respect to that purple parameter? Look at the data set around that purple line. Haley involved in that conversation? You looking? No. Miracle? You looking? No one has anything that they notice?
They're more spread out on the first one and then close together and then spreading out again.
Okay. Anybody else want to add on to or push back on? What you got, Marshall?
There's more dots closer towards the purple line than the other side.
Okay, there's more dots closer to the purple line. Anybody else? Almost there. What I would point out in the mathematical language that hits on what y'all are talking about is this. It's almost symmetrical around that purple line. You see how that purple line kind of goes through the center of the dot plots? By going through the center of the dot plots, and that's what was weird to me. I was like, why in the world? Because I knew the parameter. By the way, does anyone remember what we mean by parameter? It was from the book. It was the population values. Remember, statistics are sample values. Parameters are population values. We need to study that language, that vocabulary. But the parameter, that's why I use that symbol mu, the average word length for every word in the song was 3.91. I knew that that should have been in the center of these dot plots of these statistics. And so that's why I went back and checked it. Notice how when you chose, you see how more data points are further to the right? Right? Less of those data points were right on that parameter. And so that's what we want to notice. The only way that our sample approximates the parameter is when we use what keyword? Random. The only way that our samples can approximate, or the statistical word there is represent the parameter, the population, is if we have random sampling in there. Because random sampling makes sure that every single data element is how likely to be selected. It's a really important E word. Equally likely. Only the randomization guarantees that every word or every data element is equally likely to be selected. Remember, your eyes are going to be drawn to, in this case, drawn to which type of words? The bigger words, the longer words, right? They literally take up more space on the page. And so we have to pay attention to that, right? And so we want to notice, right, that we have to have random sampling. But we need some more practice, right? What are the two things that allow us to do random sampling? There's two different things that we looked at to do random sampling yesterday. The abbreviations are still over here, RDT and RNG. RDT was the random digit table, right? Because we're looking at those digits, right? Random digit table, and then RNG was the random number generator. And where do we get those random number generators? The calculator, right? So I want you to pay attention to these directions. Let me check what page this is on. This is at the end of that lesson that we were working on. That's not what I need. This is on page, hopefully I wrote it down. Page 92. You weren't here yesterday? Did you not get a book last Thursday? When we started class, why not? Under your desk office. You can grab it then? Okay, so up on the bookshelf up there. I'll go get it. What do you think? Yes, ma'am. Let me get the instructions to everyone and then I will let you do that. So, we should be on page 92. By the way, M5-92. M5-92. Now, if you notice, when we look at the practice problems here, and every lesson in the book will have a practice and a few other things, If you look at these practice problems here though, there's actually numbers 1 through 5. We're not doing 1 through 5 because we only learned about simple random sampling, okay? That's the only one we're focusing on. There are other types of random sampling. But you're going to do number 1 twice. One time you're going to use the what? The random digit table. And the second time you're going to use the random number generator. Now, when using the random digit table, I want the whole group to choose the same line to start on. That way you can help each other make sure that you're getting this right. But I will say it's impossible for you to get the same sample using the random number generator, so just help each other out if someone forgets what to do. Remember, small group time, I want active collaboration. Now, one detail I want to remind you of is this. Pay attention to the directions. We have 24 professional athletes participating in a charity golf tournament. Each golfer has been given an identification number from 01 through 24. Why do they do 01 here? Through 24.
For the table.
For the table, yes, but why do we need a 01? Hey, Jayla. If I continue to see on your smartwatch, you're going to have to put it up with your phone.
Oh, so it could be 2 numbers.
So it'd be 2 numbers. Because what's the maximum golfer ID number? 24, which has how many digits? 2 digits. So every number needs how many digits? 2. So I will point this out. When you do the random digit table, are you going to go every 3 digits like we did yesterday? No, you're going to go every 2 digits. Remember, the maximum number of digits is how many digits you go on the random digit table, so help each other with that. Now, remember, the random digit table is going to help you pick which golfers you're looking at. So we have golfers, and we should note, we have the golfers and their scores right next to each other here, and then here's another group of golfers and their scores. What are we going to average based on the instructions in number 1? We're going to average their scores. We want to know what the average score of those golfers is. Okay? So, now I want you to work within your small groups. I want you to complete number 1 twice again, once with the random digit table, once with the random number generator. I'm going to come around and help support you and things like that. I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes max to get this done so that we can get to the rest of today's lesson. Let's get to work. Last name. How do you spell
You're right. We got a random digit table. Let's get to work on identifying which line we're going to use to randomly select. What happened to the one today? So, let me sit down and work with you. You two work together. Yeah, you two work together for now. Really quickly, what line now? So we keep and so golfers, we may right not making it rain. What we're talking about earlier is in order to sample balance. Okay, get them.
I'm telling y'all,
So
we do
remember, we need to
6 to 5.
Oh, 6.
and then we're gonna ask.
28.
So we have golfers here, 0, 1 through 24. Because the list
But he ain't say nothing about
keep this going until I find some golfers
I'm telling y'all,
Alright, what you said?
you pick 2 numbers from the line, like next to the next to the
No, because like, I'll have
like they do, like, they said, no, yesterday,
I know.
hey, we should go golf.
Unless you go the first 5, and then it's not 5, then we go to this one.
Holiday.
Can we, Mr. Sully, can we go to song
I mean, I would hold on to it to make, give context to what we did in the book. Okay, I'll get in 1 second. Why did y'all, how'd y'all get these 6? But, so did you just choose those? Is it you choose, is that?
Oh, I get it.
And you just choose it?
Oh.
Make it random?
Then I'll be confused.
We talked about this yesterday. But if you choose,
He's really silly.
that's why the directions say you need to use the one time before that, we used RDT, the random digit
Menu probability random.
Alright.
Yeah, well, where'd you put it? D random digit table. D where's the random digit table? The random digit table is the table.
Yeah, he don't waste all our.
So for this random digit table, notice how there are, we want to randomly select 6 of these 24 golfers, okay? And so we have golfers numbers 0 to 1 to 24. And we're using 0 to 1 because the maximum golfer number is 24. See how that's 2 digits?
You gotta do a random
So I
number
need to use 2 digits all the way through.
You're
What line do y'all want to select off of that random digit table? So you can just pick any line. Pick a line. Alright, so we're gonna start with line 3. And what you do is you go until you find 6 golfers that are on here. Now, is there a 95th golfer? Those are the first 2 digits. Is there a 95th golfer? No. So I'm gonna cross through 95. What's the next 2 digit number?
It's probability.
Is there a 63rd golfer?
And then 2.
And remember, you don't even have to look at the tape here because you know there's only what number
You got him.
1 through
He got it.
24. Next we have 99. Is there a 99?
The same shit we've been doing.
What about 97? 54th? 97? What do we do? Is there a 31st? No. What if the next one is back to home? 19, is there a 19th golfer? So we're gonna use the 19. Alright, go. So we go to 19, and we're gonna use that golfer. Does that make sense? And I would probably use 2 different notations, either a circle and a square for random digit table and random number generator, things like that. In that line. So then you would just wrap down to the next one. All of it, you just keep going. Make sense?
Yeah.
What do we do? Yes, ma'am. If you don't get all, remember, I think you need 6 golfers, don't you? From the directions? Look at number 1, doesn't it say only 6? Okay, I'll come to you in 1 second. What's up?
I need help.
We need help.
Why do you need help?
We got this.
So did you already do the random digit table completely?
No.
Remember, you're supposed to do the random digit table first. Okay? Yeah, pick a line. Do the random digit table first. Now, you got here on the random number generator. Did y'all take notes yesterday? Yeah, but did you take notes yesterday about what to put in? So instead of asking me, look at your notes about what you're supposed to put into here. I'll be more than happy to answer it afterwards, but
We looking at the notes.
it's activity 2.2, number 2, I think. Yep, there you go.
We looking at the notes. But never mind, we know now, we know now.
Okay, you're doing that, but go back and look at your notes, because it should be there. So, once we get ran int, what does it say? Minimum, maximum, and how many numbers? What's the minimum option? What's the lowest number for the golfer ID? 1. So the lowest is 1. What's the maximum? Not 12. 24. Remember, it goes all the way to 24, and then how many do you want? Look at I was saying, look at the directions number 1. You want 6. That's it. All right.
I know, like, kind of get that, like, what are you saying?
Well, you need to use the random digit table to select which 24 golfers you're going to use, right? So which line are you looking at? We're all using line 1. Okay. So is there a 65th golfer? No. So we're going to ignore it. So I'm going to cross through. Is there a 28th golfer? No. Is there a 59th golfer? 71st? 98th? 12th? So I'm going to use the 12th golfer. And what I would probably do is I might color coordinate or something like that, or maybe do circle for random digit table and square for a random number generator. But I need how many golfers do I have to select? Alright, so let's find our 6 golfers.
Alright, so we had 2 10, so we just skip over the 6.
Say again?
I had another 10.
So you had 13. Yes, you would skip 10 if you have 10 come up twice. I'll be right back. What's up? You already got 5, right? So then you go down to the next line.
But yeah, 2 digits, right? 14.
You what? Have you talked to your group yet? Okay. Okay, so what are you not getting? So remember, we want to select 6 what?
So do we add all the scores and divide by 5?
Kind of. We want. So remember, there are scores associated with golfers. So I need 6 golfers. What's the lowest identifier for the golfers? What's the highest? Remember, because there's 2 sets, right? So I'm going to go from. I'm going to look for 0 to 24. So is there? Which line are you looking at?
Yeah, I got 20, 24, 1, 2,
Okay. So is there a 65th golfer? I'm going to cross that out. Is there a 28th golfer? 59th? 71st? 98th? 12th? I'm going to use the 12th golfer. Is there a 13th golfer?
You said 14, 24.
Is there a 18th golfer? Is it 8? No. 30th?
But we have 6.
So keep going until you get 6. And then remember, are you going to average the golfer identifier number? No, you're trying to average their scores. You're trying to work it together. Hey, by the way, quickly, you're down for to talk with my third block about character. You're no longer in my third block, so you're not coming home. I need to talk to this one. See if we can. Okay. Yeah.
So once we do all these, we add these.
It's a good question. So are you gonna add? So are you gonna average the 12, the 13, the 10, 11? What are we gonna average? So remember, this is to select the golfers. But what are we trying to average? Their scores. So like if I'm looking at 12, the number I'm gonna average is 77. So there you go. Remember how we looked at, we picked the number and we identified the word with that number? Same thing here, we picked our number golfer and now we need their scores and we're gonna average those scores. Make sense?
Average golfers, and then we're gonna go back in and do it.
The random number generated on the calculator. Yes. How are we feeling? Pretty good? Good. Uh, 32, is this enough?
That's mine.
Who's it? Trayon. Can you just turn off? Okay. Make sure, I just accidentally snoozed it. Make sure you turn that alarm off. Yes.
You got close.
While we around. Because we're an average what? An average score. An average doesn't have to be an integer. You can have decimals with average. Think about your words. Didn't y'all get like 4.2 letters per word? Because that's just an average. It's not an exact value. It's a possibility. I mean, look at the scores that you have. If you look at those scores, is that number kind of in the middle of those scores?
But it's probably just
Yes, you did. So now, why did you divide by?
Did you divide by 6?
Oh.
So that's why we need to look together. Did y'all have 13 plus 4 plus 7 plus 8 plus 15? No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure. What was the first golfer that y'all had? Which identifier number? Oh, you have golf for 17? Did you have golf for 15 in there? Regardless, these are your. But regardless, what you averaged was the golfer identifier. Remember, we are trying to select golfers.
Y'all not get to the lowest.
Right? And so you selected golfer 17. But what are we trying to average?
I don't know, it won't tell me.
But that's still we got the same birthday.
So golfer 17 had a score of 7. Golfer 15 had
We got the lowest number we got was golfer.
So remember the difference between the identifier and the score. So let's keep going. Alright, did we find our average? Okay. With average. So we at least got our 6. Okay, so which golfers did you I see that you circled 85 and 80. Or at least you did. I don't know. Did y'all circle 85? Okay. So look right here. And I want to point this out. They did not circle the scores because we're not looking at the scores yet. We're trying to select golfers. Right? So we need numbers 1 through 24 for the golfers, and then we're going to look at the scores. So average those scores. Come on. Okay? So we need to select a golfer and then find a score for the golfers. I'm on the way. Well, you would divide by 6 there. When you say add one up in the line, what, so I have 12, 13, 12, and go. So 10. Good, right? We're not going to use 10 again. We got 11, and then what? 16. 24.
Same thing we did with.
So at 10.
One
And remember, mark.
you get all your
We do different lines.
add all of the
16.
like all of the
Number 6. Yeah, I'm not. Right? So that's 1, 2, 3.
There's only 5.
I wrote down how you doing.
Oh, 12,
Mississippi.
11, next one, yeah. But what are we trying to have? Scores. So we're gonna use scores for those. This identifies which golfer, and we're only averaging the scores.
I'm waiting for them to put it.
Correct. The average. Well, no, she does it this last year. She's about to use the random number. So, let's, I'm gonna let you do the average, like, since I'm here, let's go we do, thank you. Should be an activity too. Okay, so remember, once you create a calculator, then we have to create a calculator first. From the calculator page, when you see this, you're gonna hit menu, everything that you do. Then,
What numbers you got?
probability.
Is that the number that you added?
You might have your integers. So what's the first number you got?
I got 74.3.
What is the first number?
Yes, I
Minimum identifier.
You got 74.3.
And then something before the 24. We need a comma. Remember, we gotta separate the 1 into 24. So the maximum
Go ahead.
identifier. And then the comma.
What is that different number?
Max. Remember, it was minimum, maximum, and then how many numbers.
Yeah, trash.
This is your
Anything repeats, so we'll just rerun it, right? So you got 4 twice.
this is your golf.
So you get this one. Six different average. That can take
Those just the final random golf.
work on that together. Did you already do both averages? Yeah, so if we get the same number twice, rerun it until you get 6 different numbers, okay? The random is. Yes, Ethan. Minimum golfer identifier number?
I just did the same way you did that.
And then the maximum.
Random numbers you got.
And then you go to the then you go to the picture, then you
Say
add.
again? Yes, it's over here. It's 4. No. Have you all finished this math? Yeah. I know you haven't. Did you say? You haven't done the second problem. Part of the problem yet. You have to do the random number generators part still. The 6 different ones from there. No, because they need to each practice doing a random number generator.
Mr. Skin.
Guys, we've got 5 minutes max. I need y'all to get on it. Get to that random number generator.
Alright, so look what.
So you would use those identifiers, right?
This is score, right?
And you average their scores.
Again, I got it.
There you
It's supposed
go.
to be plus 8, right?
They should be similar, shouldn't they? Right?
So we're not using random numbers.
No, because remember, those are the identifiers. Remember, these were the identifiers. We had to select golfers. So we used the 3rd golfer, the 8th golfer, the 23rd golfer, right? But we're averaging the what for those golfers. So you go to the 3rd golfer, and there's their score. Remember how you identified the golfer, and then you got their score?
I got 7.
You didn't have to restart it. You could have just kept working on that page.
I turned it off, or I snoozed it before, but that's turning it off. I hit the wrong button.
What are the two last words in generate that? The two last letters.
What do you mean? It's minimal, maximum.
That's perfectly fine, that way we can go. You need a calculator, yes.
Minimum fuel, how many? How many? Something say. We did 124. Minimum, maximum.
You go to. That is.
I go on YouTube.
What you got?
Yes, sir.
What number you got?
Did I put Bradley and Bartley?
It's a very common
I'll fix
No,
that.
but aren't you saying the last question is?
He said just
So remember you have to hit control and then enter.
He said just
But
number one.
how do you get 65? Really quick, I need y'all to take notes. What are we trying to answer? Did you average?
He doesn't work like regular, it's me midday. Yeah, I think
Any questions on random digit table or random number generator? All right, get started. Okay. How are we doing with at least using the random digit table and the random number generator? Yeah. You got a 10.83 as your average? Yeah. Did everybody else get 10.83 for the, or something close to 10.83? I want to caution you, and I want to remind you of something. What are we trying to average? Did you average their schools? Or did you average their identifier? Huh? I think you did the golfers. Remember, and this is something I wholeheartily caution or I recommend is, so what numbers did you get? What golfers? No. What numbers? So you got 18. What I would do is I would do 18 and then I would write their score. What's the score for golfer 18? 76. That's what you're going to want to average. Don't forget to be careful. Okay? Alright, how are we doing with our averages? Done? Making sense? We're good with, what do you not get? Okay. We've been doing this for 20 something minutes. Did you ask some questions? Did she ask you questions? And y'all just left her behind? Y'all know that learning is a collective thing, right? Okay, well, when I was over here earlier, why didn't you ask me? So what did you get? Were you okay on using the random digit? Yes. So you know how to select 6 golfers using the random digit?
It was 10 number.
12, 13, 10, 11. So was this from the random number? So, but once you select this golfer,
And I would have used this, that same color here, so, we have 12, we have 13, we have 10, and you have 11, right? But then you have 16, and you have, what are you trying to find? Remember, that's just the goal. What are you trying to have? Did you divide by 7? You have 461. But you see how you accidentally divided by 6 the second time? So hit enter, remember, hit control this. That's your answer, 76. Right? Then you need to use the random number generator to select. But gentlemen, this is going to hurt you on active collaboration, that you have one of your members that you left behind.
What you going to do?
Help her from the rest and before we get started. Yes, sir. I got to see how well.
I did.
Oh, you're correct. You talked to them. How are we on random digit table and random number generator? We know how to use it. Yes, you're looking at their scores. Right? So that's just which golfer, and now you average the scores of those golfers. Tyson, how are you with it? Are you collaborating with your group and talking with them? Come on, man. You're not going to learn this way. I'm trying to help you learn. How is the random digit table and random number generator? Okay, so the NCF line. We got 24 golfers in it. Lowest number. You good? You good? I would say that they did explain it, but that doesn't mean that you understood it. But you even argued against me when I've been telling you what to do. I'm explaining. That doesn't mean you're understanding it. We may need to re-explain it. But that doesn't mean we're not explaining it. We're talking like all this. Okay, when you miss a video, because I'm recording right now. Make sure you go watch that to learn from what you missed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of quick details. These are common mistakes that a lot of us make. If you're still doing that average, keep doing that, but I do want you to pay attention to this. First off, and Haley brought up a good point, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more at the end and I'll show you where to go. If you miss a day of class, first off, when we're on the block schedule, this counts the same as what was 2 periods when you're in middle school. That's 2 days worth of instruction that you missed. That can be rough. But every day, I'm going to record at least one of my classes and post that video to YouTube so that you can go and watch that. And I'll try to get that up 4th block every day so that you can watch it in the afternoon if you miss a day of class. Now, that means that's a 90-minute video. Do not watch 90 minutes. Because all this time that you just worked in your small groups, that's not going to be helpful for you, okay? Only watch the parts of the video where I'm at the front and I'm giving whole class instruction. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'll show you what to do on YouTube to find those videos, but legitimately, all you have to do is go check out that video because I'll get those up during 4th block from here on out. Here's my word of caution though, and I need you to pay attention to this. When you use the random digit table, when you use the random number generator, what you're going to do is you're going to randomly select scores. You have to use something that's truly random though. And when you generate these numbers, for example, Ethan, when you use your random number generator, what golfers did you select? 18, 3, 2, 19, 13, and 10. Okay? Notice how I circled the golfer identifier number. The number one mistake students make is they average those numbers. But what are you actually trying to find? The average score.
do not forget that what you're actually trying to find. You're trying to find the average score. So as soon as you randomly select those numbers, what I would do is I would maybe right above, I would write out ID, and then I might write value. So the identifier of 2 has what value or what score? 75. Then golfer 3 has 69, right? Golfer 10 has what score? 77. And so don't forget that these are identifiers. And so when I see that number 2, I don't say, oh, that's what I'm averaging. I say, oh, that's the second golfer. Okay, what's the score for that second golfer? Just like yesterday when we selected different words, right? We said, oh, I need to find the 183rd word. What's the length of that word, right? So be careful about that. That's the number one mistake. The random things that you are selecting are only the identifiers. You need to average the other values. What are your questions about this? It felt like going around to the different groups, we were all correctly selecting numbers on the random digit table, things like that. Good point that came up with a couple of groups is, if the number 10 shows up twice, what are you going to do? You're going to skip the second one, right? If you run a random number generator and a number shows up twice, what are you going to do? You can rerun it. Now you could also just run one more number until you get one that doesn't work, but I would just rerun the random number generator until you get 6 different numbers. Okay. Any questions about that? Please remember, and I had some people bring this up, they're like, okay, what am I supposed to put in the calculator? I'm more than happy to teach you, but I also want to teach you to be independent. And remember, we literally wrote out notes to explain what to put in the calculator, right? Make sure you go back and you study those notes before assessments, because I will be assessing your ability to use a random number generator. I'll be assessing your ability to use a random digit table. I'll be assessing your ability to explain why we need something random. Now, I want to point this out really quickly before we start the rest of this lesson. I did the calculations using the calculator, a feature that maybe we'll get to one day. The average score was 4, or not 4, the average score was 74 with a standard deviation, and I'll explain more about that later in the year, of 4.7. And so I want you to look at the averages that you got. Who had an average that was within 4.7 of 74? That means that your average score was somewhere between 69.3 and 78.7. Who had a score between there? Not everyone. But I wager if I go around, it's somewhere around 68% of us did. That's because of an idea called statistics and something known as normal distributions. Not everyone did, because our sum score is going to be a little bit bigger than others, even with randomness. Are some going to be a little bit bigger, some a little bit smaller? 100%. But if I take the average of all of your scores, do you know what I would get from the average of all of your scores? That's 74, because it's going to be right in the center. Remember, when we have the true parameter, that dot plot, those samples will be around that parameter, okay? And so that's what we see. Most of you, 68% of you roughly, were between that 69.3 and that 78.7. There is going to still be variability. But when it's random, the samples are going to be what for the population? It starts with an R. Well, the randomness is what gets us there. It's something we're going to talk about more in a second. They're going to be representative. When the samples are randomly selected, our samples are going to be representative of the population. And that's what we want. If it's not representative of the population, then I don't have good information. I can't make good decisions based on those kinds of things. Okay. So, again, we will need to be able to do those things in the future. Any final questions about random number generators, random digit tables, why randomness is important in the selection process? So now we're going to go to Module 5, Topic 2, Lesson 1. So we're actually going to go a little bit backwards in the book. Again, I wanted us to buy in a little bit to studying these things. We talked about statistical questions because if we have a statistical question, it helps us think about the world around us. Then we looked at, okay, so how do we collect data using sampling techniques? now we're gonna get into this idea of what is a population. It's gonna be we're going backward, oh yeah, backwards, hold on. It's module 5, topic 2, lesson 1, page 65, M565, okay? M5-65. It says data everywhere. So we've learned how to sample correctly, but now we're going to learn about a little bit more about the terminology of population. We're going to more clearly define what a sample is. We're going to look at what the characteristic of interest in a study is, and we're going to talk